want to talk a little bit about education, ministry, and business. How many of you, so I know my audience a little bit, how many have been to Andrews University before? So quite a few. You can see this entrance there. Now, have you ever made a mistake in life? Have you been on the wrong side of an issue? So when they decided to build that entrance, I was gone from Andrews at that time. I was opposed to it, not that my influence had anything. I was opposed to it because they had to wipe out a bunch of student housing, and I remembered, married student housing. I thought that's really important. And the typical argument, the waste of money. But I think I was wrong because this sends a message. It has an image that's so important. Most of our community didn't even know we existed because nobody ever saw the university. And when you stop and think about it, does location matter for a business? Yes, sure. It matters extremely much. Does location matter for a church? Yes. Now, you can have influence wherever your church is located. But I lived in upstate New York in the Buffalo Suburban Church. You drive by on the thruway and you see it right there, and that sends the message that you're there. So location matters, and our students at Andrews University, we are, in 2018, I think it was, we were tied for ranked #1 for ethnic diversity in the United States. The number of different countries that we had students from for national universities, and this sends a message when they come in. They all stop and take pictures there that we're a global institution, part of the world church. And so we're very proud of our university, but our goal is to help students change their lives and change the world. Our slogan right now is "World Changers Made Here." So I am the Associate Provost, and I'm also, my influence is across the campus in that role. And I'm the Dean of the School of Business, because we needed someone with a business background. And now we have just reconfigured and we have our College of Professions. So now I'm the Dean of the College of Professions, which houses the School of Business and the Aviation Department. And Dave is here from Aviation. And the college, the Department of Computing. So let's start off with, I want you to tell me, this is a classroom experience. I am not very good at preaching. I like to have dialogue, so ask questions at any time. What do these three people have in common?
They're working key positions in the government.
Key positions in government. Excellent. Other ideas? Character. Had tremendous character. Did they develop that once they were in their position? No. They had enhanced it, but the character was developed before they got into this position.
They had trials that they, almost like unfair trials.
Okay. Unfair trials. Almost unfair trials.
Yeah.
I'm saying almost because God promises not to give us anything that we can't handle. We almost can handle, but we can't be handled.
They served in areas where they were not natives.
Served in areas that they were not natives. Very, very good.
They all were well trusted by kings, and they all were able to show and reveal who God was to kings, emperors.
Okay, so they were all trusted by kings and able to reveal God's plan to the kings, to the leaders of the time. So these three all had tremendous leadership influence. And I like the idea that their characters were developed before that. Some of them had education. They all had experience and training before they were thrust into this role of influence. So the last part of Mark chapter 13, verse 9, on account of me you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them. So in education, we are trying to build character and prepare people for their mission, whatever that may be. But some of them are going to have tremendous influence. So tell me, who is the most famous person you've ever met? A couple of you. Who's the most famous person you've ever met? Did you ever see Ted Wilson before? He's pretty famous, right?
Yeah.
So when I was just finished college, I went to Northern New England, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont conference. And my job was to clean the bathrooms, clean the restrooms. And so I would go from restroom to restroom and put out my little sign and go in there and do the cleaning and never realized how important that was until that job came up. And the General Conference president at the time, Elder Pearson, or maybe he was just not the president, past president, he was there to speak. And I remember going in to his little cabin to fix something with a toilet. And he asked me some questions while I was fixing the toilet, who my family was and their names and what they were doing. And then afterwards, he said, let's pray. So this had a tremendous impact on my life because he remembered everything I had told him. And prayed about it. So that was my first brush with someone who was important and famous in the Adventist church. Who else have you come in contact that's famous?
Is your speaker on? That's what I was saying. I heard.
Okay, let's see if we can get this on. I forgot to unmute. So hopefully some of you have been able to hear, and I'm sorry for the rest of you.
That's better.
Okay. So who have you, somebody famous you've met? To influence those who are
Princess and Tyler.
Princess and Tyler. Okay. So board is from our School of Education. God prepares us, each one of us has a tremendous influence on those around us. That's what ASI stands for. You have a sphere of influence that no one else has that same sphere of influence. And you will have opportunities to interact with people that most pastors will never have. So I wish that every important person I had met, I had a chance to influence them for right. I know when I was at Michigan State University, at the end, one of my professors said, "You Christians are good to work with." Must have had some influence there. I've seen Hillary Clinton speak at graduation. I used to work for 18 years at the State University of New York in Rockport, near Rochester, New York, and she came one year for graduation. My friend, one of the professors, we were sitting in the front row, he started to pull out a camera to take a picture, and the Secret Service came running up onto the platform and dived in front of her to protect her from him shooting her. That was exciting, but I didn't talk to her. Chuck Schumer came and every graduation gave his speech. It was always the same speech. Faculty members could recite it word for word. That was a famous person. In the State University of New York system, we had 64 campuses, 465,000 students, and the chancellor was over that whole thing. And so I had the opportunity to travel with a couple of chancellors overseas. Admiral Ryan, traveled with him in the Ukraine, and then he agreed to come and talk to my class. That was pretty exciting. But it wasn't until recently that I've started to, after all these years, have opportunities. And my influence is pretty meager, but opportunities to meet with some people. So I worked for the State University of New York. I was a finance professor. Then I moved into the role of assistant provost for international education. So I sent students all over the world. We had over 100 partners, one of the largest study abroad programs in the State University of New York system. My most favorite place to go was, I took students one time to Antarctica. That was pretty exciting. So, education opens doors of influence. I started to realize that education opens doors of influence, and we're all called to a particular role. Not everybody is called to education. But it reminded me of my brother growing up. I don't know if any of you know my brother, Homer Trecartin. Well, he's a good storyteller, better than I am. I like to claim him. I'm very proud of him. I like to claim his storytelling ability is that I trained him, but it's not true. So in college, a General Conference mission representative came to our campus, and I was a theology major at the time, and I wanted to go to the mission field, and he said, well, you're in the wrong degree. You need to take something else, because we don't need theology majors in the mission field. We need business people, we need other people in the mission field. We're going to use local people usually to be the pastors in those fields. And so that was really disappointing to me, but in hindsight, it was probably good advice. So I want to tell you a little bit about what's happening in Vietnam and the ways that we collaborate right now. It's so exciting. So Griggs International is an Adventist organization that transferred to Andrews University. They've been working in Vietnam for a few years, so they've started this. But we have now merged them into Andrews University, and we have work in Vietnam. We offer the MBA degree, Master's of Business Administration degree there. We are just starting to offer the Bachelor of Business Administration there degree as well, with the largest university in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam National University, huge university. And then we've opened up a new agreement with National Economics University in Hanoi, which is Hanoi. So Vietnam, if you don't know, what do you know about Vietnam? We had a war with them, right? Well, it's a booming country economically. And right now with President Trump talking about tariffs on China, a lot of businesses are even shifting their production to Vietnam. It's even more booming than ever. It's just an amazing, it's like one of the four tigers 20 years ago. So it's a booming country. 95 million people in this little country. And how many people do we have in the United States? Somewhere over 300 million. So about a third, a little less than a third of the membership population in Vietnam. It's a communist country. Our Seventh-day Adventist Church doesn't have a lot of activity there. We have some official churches, we have some underground churches, but there isn't a lot of activity going on there. Well, right now with these MBA programs, we have influence, tremendous influence to make friends. This Sunday is Andrew's summer graduation. I'll have 2 Vietnam students that will be graduating. They came to the United States for the MBA. I have another student that graduated in the spring, and she spent her summer at Advent Health, and she's been very involved in the social activities, up front leading songs. They're making friends in our university. When I was there in May, we spent some time with the students, and amazing students we're making friends with. One of the students I talked to had just he worked for a large bank. He just did a $100 million US deal. Another one of our students has the largest dating site in the country of Vietnam. They're a very famous person in their country. We just met with Petrolomix, is their national petroleum organization, and their executives are learning English right now, and then they will be taking cohorts in our MBA program. I sat on the plane with one of your students, Board. He's the director of ANA Airlines in Vietnam, Al Nippon, the Japanese airlines. So he oversees all the aviation for 75 airports in the country. He's doing your doctoral degree in leadership. So the influence that I have is small, but I get to be places that no one else can be. So our main contact works for the Politburo in the country. And he took us to see the education minister for the country. We've seen this individual twice. He's a big friend of our program. Because of our friendship, even though they're a communist country, they're opposed to religious proselytization, our seminary dean has visited, and they like him so much they've said that he's free to have meetings there. So he can have workshops and meetings there, even though they don't allow that to happen. So your influence, God is directing you. You have a sphere of influence. There will be doors open that you never imagined, just like Esther, just like Joseph, just like Daniel. And the collaboration opportunities are great for us in countries that we didn't imagine, because God is opening the work there. The last thing I want to tell you about Vietnam is about 7,000, 3 different locations that we went to meet, and I rarely seen a school where the kids are so happy and so full of life. So growing up, I had 4 boys, and you know how boys are when they're very young, they're bouncing off the walls. And in school, do we allow that to happen? We drug them up with, say they're out there, have ADHD, we give them drugs, we put them in an atmosphere where they learn not to love education. By the time they get to university, they've lost their love of education. And then we have to try to reinvigorate them when they get there. So this little school, I was so impressed. The kids in between classes had huge open spaces, and they were just running around laughing, having a great time. It was the type of school that they focus on the personality more than they focus on the academics. They focus on the personality. It sounded like they'd been reading Ellen White, and they were talking about the whole person education. And so they are looking at collaborating with us and taking our curriculum and putting it into these schools. So the world is opening up. I think I'll wait on that. Any questions so far? You're free to ask questions. Okay, so we also have a lot of students coming to us from China. I don't know if that will continue, but right this instant we have a group of 26 Chinese students on our campus for 3 weeks. We do a summer camp where we give them English classes in the morning. We have a healthcare administration class in the afternoon for them. They do lots of excursions. We have a special program for them to introduce them to the culture, the religious culture of the United States. We talked about some of the opportunities that they have to ask questions that they wouldn't get in their home country. And then they go back to their universities, and a lot of them will then come to us. We have a lot of students in our MBA program right now from China. And they are learning. We have a Sabbath school class once a month specifically for those students to address issues of religion from a perspective that is not a typical Adventist Sabbath school class, because they come to us with no religious background at all. So we bring in professors to talk about scientific issues, creation issues, archaeological issues, We're trying to bring them to a friendship with us. Then we take them, of course, to church, potluck, and so on. In the country of Ghana, there's some new opportunities opening up. I just spent some time with one of the Supreme Court justices there. We, of course, went to our university at Valley View, but we're also looking at bringing some aviation students from the most respected engineering school there, the University of Science and Technology. So what is that SBA education system? I'll now switch gears a little bit and talk about some issues and some problems. We have an SBA education system. Our church structure, I'm so proud of it. The financial structure, the church structure, and the mission that we have has been tremendously successful at spreading the gospel throughout the whole world. I don't think it's perfect. I think there are times when we need to change, but right now we have in the world 8,514 schools and colleges, colleges, and universities, 108,000 teachers, a couple million students. This is a tremendous opportunity that we have. And if we were a congregational organization, we wouldn't have this, because there are congregational denominations that send students overseas. They send professors, they send missionaries overseas, but they don't have the systematic way of building a mission to reach the world. Sometimes we question whether the quality of our schools is worth it. And sometimes we question whether if my student goes to an Adventist school, they will be prepared well enough. There's a perceived quality issue. So I hear that on both sides. Is it harder to be successful if you graduate from an SBA institution? Are we somehow inferior? And that's the natural question. If you are going off to a public university, you wonder, did my SBA education pay off? And I can assure you that the quality of our SBA education is excellent. There are areas for improvement, but the quality is excellent. And we have people that are moving into the highest areas of positions all over the world that have gone through our schools. So here's a quote. Let me see if you like this quote. What is the aim and purpose of your life? Are you ambitious for education, that you may have a name and position in the world? Have you thoughts that you dare not express, that you may one day stand upon the summit of intellectual greatness, that you may sit in deliberative and legislative councils and help enact laws for the nation? Any reaction to that? Do you like that concept? Or is that sort of rub you the wrong way? So when I was growing up, I sometimes felt a little guilty about having ambition. Then I found this quote. Here's the rest of it. There's nothing wrong in these aspirations. Messages to young people. That's okay, right? Aim high and spare no pains to reach the standard. The fear of the Lord lies at the foundation of all true greatness. Integrity, unswerving integrity, is the principle that you need to carry with you into all the relations of life. Carry your religion with you. So you may be influencing business people around you. You may be helping in a ministry someplace. You may be eventually talking to kings or legislatures or rulers. Okay, I want to give you a little bit of background about where I'm coming from, and then talk about some of the issues facing the North American division. So this is the Chan Shun Hall on the campus of Andrews University. If you're ever at Andrews, please come by and see if I'm in my office. I'd be happy to talk to you. It'd be great to meet you. So we have a number of undergraduate business programs, marketing, management, accounting, finance, information systems, and international business, tremendous programs. We have a lot of students that do pre-medical. They get a degree in business, but they take their pre-med courses, and then they'll go off to Loma Linda or elsewhere. We have, this morning you heard the ASI Colleges Abroad presentation. Great opportunities for students to get their language and their business degree at the same time. As something exciting, I'm going to show you a slide that talks about the purpose of education. New program, our Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. We also offer Masters of Business Administration and Masters of Science in Administration degrees. So we believe that the whole person needs to develop. And this morning when we heard the discussion about the Amish and their focus on work, it saddens me, but as a Seventh-day Adventist denomination, we tend to lag the world by about 20 years in our philosophies. So it used to be that work was really, really important as part of our education system. And then it slowly, as the laws changed, the child labor laws came in, for whatever reason, we phased work programs out of most of our schools. We still have students that work on our campuses, but it seems like we need to swing back the other way, and there's a lot of reasons why. We need good work programs on our campuses. I know that some of the schools are doing a better job than others in this area, but we really are putting a focus on internships. So right now, our students, our accounting students and our finance students can walk out of class and walk across the hall, and they work for Crow, one of the national accounting firms. All of their audit data is electronic now. So they send a manager to our campus, pay our students $15.50 an hour, and they can work up to 30 hours a week while they're in school and getting great internship experience. So Crow, one of our auditing teachers, is a manager for Crow, senior manager. So he opened up this internship program on 2 campuses, Ohio State University and Andrews University. And for the first couple of years, we beat them, Ohio State University, for student billable hours. We did a great job. They're very, very pleased with that program. We're trying to get students placed all over in internship positions. We have a lot of students that will go to Advent Health, a lot of students that will go to Kettering, a lot of students that go to Avita Health in Chicago. The healthcare organizations can't get enough Adventist students. So I was at a conference at Advent Health in Florida here this spring, and they did an executive onboarding session, and they asked all the school of business deans from all of the Adventist campuses to come. So we were there watching the process of how they bring executives on. They hire them and train them and bring them on board. And one thing stuck out to me. They're planning on hiring this year 22,507 people at Advent Health. They have lots of hospitals over 40 states. Will those all be Adventists, 22,000? No, absolutely not. We wish they were. They wish they were, but they just can't get enough. They have made a commitment that all management will be Adventists, but they struggle. Our business schools don't have enough people to turn out to give them all the people that they need. So they struggle to get the opportunities to fill positions. And the only way we are going to meet that need is if we can keep more of our young people in our church. So computer science has moved over into the College of Professions, And you know that the Amazon is now exploring delivery with drones. Any good real estate firm has a drone to take pictures of their houses. So all drones have to meet the Federal Aviation Administration regulations. So we have a drone certificate that we're partnering with the Aviation Department and the computer science, the computing department. So students will come out with a certificate and they'll not only be able to program their drones and manage them and run them, but they'll be able to go to work for a number of interesting operations in that area. We have a degree in information systems, informatics, computer science, and data science. Tremendous opportunities in this area. So most students don't want the heavy-duty mathematics. So computer science is a heavy math-oriented degree. Information systems is a heavy business degree. Informatics is in between. It's low business, low math, but lots of technology. So we've launched this new degree. We think that this is probably where 80% of the students will end up. We have a new degree in data science. It's tremendous job opportunities in that area. So here's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the job possibilities for the next 10 years, 2014 to 2024. Anything dealing with computers is that top line. Those are the jobs available. There's no way we're going to fill those jobs with U.S. citizens. Any student that wants a guaranteed job, this is a great field to go into. So we have a fabulous aviation program. It seems like I have all the programs under me where their job possibilities are excellent. So we have a hard time finding students that don't have debt that want to go to the mission field. So there's opportunities for aviation pilots, there's opportunities for aviation mechanics, but oftentimes a student comes out of school with so much debt that they don't feel like they can go. So we do have a need for help in that area. The airlines are stopping by constantly, sending us emails saying, do you have any pilots? Do you have any mechanics? There's probably a 30-year shortage of pilots worldwide. So there's tremendous opportunities. We have our aviation mechanics program. You can do a 2-year associate's degree. We have a special scholarship just for that program, $14,000 a year scholarship to get some more students in our aviation mechanics program. But all of our programs, we are very interested in not just the career success. We want the mission-minded, service-minded, ministry-minded students. We will have failed if we are just preparing students for success in their careers. Which reminds me, I worked for 18 years at State University of New York, and before that I worked at Andrews University. After that I've been back 2.5 years. I always ask my students to fill out an assignment at the beginning of class. And one of the questions was to give me a short essay on what their goals were in life. And so my Andrews University students would often, not always, but often talk about the higher, more valuable things of service and ministry. My students at State University of New York would hardly ever talk about service or ministry. They would almost always put things down like get a good job, make lots of money, maybe get married, maybe have a family. But it was always shallow ideas that are not ministry-minded. So it's so important that your students have the right motives and the right future before them. So we have these plaques on our wall in our building, Remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth. Well, that sounds like a good verse for a business school, right? But this next one is even more important to me. I count everything sheer loss, because all is far outweighed by the gain of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. So our purpose is to prepare for eternity. Yes, we want excellent careers. We want students to do great in their careers. We want them to reach the pinnacle of success. But success should be measured in far different ways, dealing with their ministry. And this is what we're trying to do. We need to move that. True education means more than pursuing a certain course of study. It has to do with the whole person and with the whole period of existence possible to human beings. It is the harmonious development of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual powers. So, to try to develop this whole person type of concept, we have launched a new Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship on our campus. So we'll have a certificate program where students can end up with a 15-credit certificate. We have a think tank for solving innovative problems, and we have a program to deal with partners with external companies. And I'll talk about these briefly. So this center comprises of these 4 pillars: a 15-credit certificate, industry partnerships, in-center think tank, and a fabrication maker space. So the certificate, students will start off with a course, Introduction to Innovation and Entrepreneurships, Foundations of Play. But this is where we teach them design thinking. We've had students go through this process now. We've only had this up for a couple of semesters. We already have 4 patents pending. Outstanding ideas that students are building their own product, their own business, their own ministry. I wish I could tell you about these 4 patents, but if I told you, I'd have to kill you because I've been sworn to keep this information secret. I signed some sort of a non-disclosure agreement. We have a second class that students will deal with tinkering and prototyping. The third one is the pre-launch toolbox. That's all your business plans and your intellectual property and your copyrights and that kind of thing. Then the students take a major elective that will help them with whatever their project is. So if you're working on an app for your phone, you probably take a programming app course that will help you with that. And then we finally get our students to launch. So our goal is to have our students by their junior year launching their business or their product or their ministry or their service so that they can start, before they're done with school, they're actually working on their business. Get them excited, get them energized, and maybe they can be making some money by the time they're done. That's sort of a theme that we work with. Back in the aviation area, we hire our students as soon as they get through the certified flight instructor rating. We hire them at $22 an hour starting as flight instructors. We can't get enough flight instructors. Maintenance students as well are hired. So that's really what we need to do. When I was in college, I was earning more money per hour than most of my students now, 35 years later, are earning. And think of the inflation between now and then. There isn't very many good earning jobs that we can have our students working on while they're at school. So we have been working with, we are not collaborating with Notre Dame University as far as a formal partnership, but we've been going and talking to them because they have an innovation park. And I'll show you in a few minutes their statistics. Their goal is to make this whole southwest Michigan, northwest Indiana area a booming economic center. The more projects, the more businesses that are launched, the more successful they are. So because of that, they've shared with us all of their intellectual property policies. They showed their whole process of how they take a business from start to launch. They're basically collaborating with us in the knowledge area without signing any agreements. So our goal is to have this makerspace where our innovation partners, companies, come in and they have us work on projects with students and with faculty. And this has already been happening to some extent. So we imagine a space that has lots of opportunities for students to think innovatively and come up with the fun part, then get into working with businesses, a great makerspace. So the college is launching its wellness center this September, and as soon as this is launched, then they're giving us the gym, the old Johnson gym, for our innovation space. So the gym has about 19,000 square feet. That's where our innovation space will be, and that will be available to students from any major. All majors will be, let's see if I can point out the gym here. So here's the School of Business building, the seminary, and over here's the gym. So we'll be drawing students and faculty from all over campus. We already have lots of faculty working on our innovation program. There's the gym. Maybe we'll end up innovating that too and getting some help with energy costs and remodeling. Here are some of the companies that we work with now or that we're planning on working with. Innovation is actually in the lifeblood of Adventist. Did you know that? Do you know who this guy is? Uriah Smith. Yep. So he had a patent for some sort of a folding chair desk thing. He had a patent for prosthetics. This is right after the Civil War. Lots of people had lost their limbs, and so he was very involved in innovation. So our goal is to repurpose Johnson Gym and bring in so we'll have companies that will have spaces that they can lock up and keep their information proprietary. We'll have different types of areas for working, so working with metal, working with wood. We'll have a cooking area. We'll have lots and lots of little, what we call garages for students. So students will be able to work on their project and then close down the door. And the interaction between students and faculty and students, any major, it's going to be very exciting. So we're hoping to move into this fall. Here's what's happening at Notre Dame. There's no reason why we can't do just as well. In the last 2 years, they've had 57 startups, generated $3.7 million of revenue for 10 of those startups. They have 59 full-time employees from these companies. They generated $3.2 million in outside equity. They created a return on investment fund, a $23 million fund that they use to fund these projects. That's something that we need to do in the Adventist Church for our students. We have 4.7 satisfaction, 62 companies in their innovation park. They've used up all their space. So we're anxious to become involved in the same type of activity, helping our students. Here's a couple of projects that our professors have been involved with. So this is an engineering professor who came up with a way to identify the veins in somebody's arms. Only 30% of IVs are successfully started at the point of emergency. My wife works in the emergency room, and I think she's more successful than 30%, so go see her. But there are times where she comes home and she says, boy, I had somebody, they were a drug user, they've been smoking all their life, and their veins were so tiny, and they have all kinds of scar tissue. We just had a terrible time getting an IV. Well, this would be a pretty cool Time Magazine thought it was the most amazing invention that year, and has a lot of potential. So this is the little prototype machine that he designed to show the veins on an arm. And those are some of the collaborative areas that would need to work on a project like that. Another one of our professors working with General Motors came up with a way to test how to bend a piece of metal used in a car, and then evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of that product, and then find a better material to use different from what they were using. And so if you're driving a General Motors car, chances are our professor had something to do with some of the parts in your car. So this is a microscopic look at that bend, and you can't see it just looking at the pipe, but in fact there are some cracks in the pipe by bending it. And they can with a computer predict where those cracks will occur, and then they go ahead and they came up with a material that worked much better. That's sort of what we're hoping to do with our Innovation Center. Just briefly, I want to talk about our new program, Department of Sustainable Agriculture. So Andrews University began as Battle Creek College in 1874, had lots of gardens and manual labor, but that labor was not part of the students. Really, it helped, but it didn't pay for a lot of their income. So there is Andrews University today in Berrien Springs, Michigan. Oh, it's not today, but there's Lamson Hall, if you've been familiar with the campus. Lamson Hall is still there, but almost everything else has changed. And this is all student gardens back in the 1940s. So this is the campus today, and as you can see, there's no gardens there. We have some gardens, but they're not nearly as large as those. So we're actually making a move back to the past in our history. So Emmanuel Missionary College, before it became Andrews University, had lots of fruits and vegetables for a while. They had a dairy that started in 1907, a milk processing plant. They made ice cream, butter. And this is some pictures from that time period. There's all the fruits and vegetables they were picking and packing. There's some of the nice cows. There's the horse Ned. He delivered the milk. And that's the farm today. But we just closed the dairy. Some of you would say that's a really good thing. Some of you would have a little pain in your heart. But we're now launching an agriculture education center, like many universities that have closed their dairies. And we are, for our animal science students that go on into veterinary medicine, they're going to have a whole range of animals now. Instead of 800 cows to work with, they'll have 10 or 15 cows, and they'll have 10 or 15 sheep and goats and poultry and so on. So there's just a little bit about what's going on with the dairy. You probably heard they've closed, and we'll have various pastures that we rotate animals through. And there's a master plan with 3 or 4 phases. So I now want to, how are we doing for time? We don't have a lot of time left. I want to look just at some of the problems that the North American education faces. We're changing lives in our colleges and universities. I'm so proud of the students that graduate from them. So I was at the State University of New York. I sent all 4 of my boys to Andrews University. They're all still in the church. 3 of them went on to Loma Linda and they're medical doctors. One of them is an assistant treasurer at a conference in Wisconsin. Very, very proud of my boys, very proud of the educational system that they had. So why would I send students to an expensive university, Adventist university, when I could have sent them to the state school for very, very cheap, where I was going? And I think the quality of education at my state university was excellent. But it isn't that I was worried that they would start partying and go out and do alcohol and drugs. That's not the issue. The issue is much more subtle than that. There's wonderful people at state universities, but they have a slightly different mission than what we have. So remember in the Bible where the Israelites were told not to intermarry? Was that because God didn't want ever anybody to marry someone that was foreign? Absolutely not. We know that there's Moabites and there's Canaanites that were assimilated into Israel. They were part of Jesus' line. It wasn't that at all. He had a mission to evangelize the whole world, and the Israelites couldn't do that. But it was because of the subtle influences. It's not the outright influences, it's the subtle influences that lead them away. I have friends now who say, oh, well, my student is gifted, my child is gifted, and I'm going to send them to Johns Hopkins University. Is there anything wrong with Johns Hopkins? It's a wonderful university. I'm going to send them to the University of Rochester. I'm going to send them to Harvard or Yale or wherever. And God loves our children. He'll never stop leading them and following them. There are exceptions to every rule, but most of the students that go to at the undergraduate level to this community college or the state university, they drift away from the church. We're losing a whole generation of students. To me, we have some issues with our universities sometimes. I think the spiritual atmosphere is great at any of them. I would say go to any of them. Go to Southern, go to Union, go to Walla Walla. You can find dedicated Christian professors there. And you can find, they will be able to find a spiritual influence that can encourage them. But I fear for students going to our non-Adventist universities, unless they're going as Waldensians. So I'm very much in favor of that Waldensian program where you go with a purpose to make friends for Christ. Earn some credits. I would love to have a group of 6 students go to Turkey. I used to interact with universities there. Go to Turkey, hardly any Adventists. Have 6 students from Adventist schools go to that country. You have your social activities, you take classes that you transfer back, you have your Bible study time, and then if you can only invite one person, you still have a core group. If you can invite 5 people, you have a beautiful group. But so often in our state universities, if a student came to my little church, a college student, there'd only be 1 or 2 of them. And it wasn't the atmosphere that they would want to come back to. Not that there's anything wrong with our vibrant kids programs and our old people Sabbath school lesson, but that we were missing the college students. So you really need to send a group of students together and then let them have a purpose for Christ. That's different. That's a ministry, that outreach ministry. But I'm very much in favor of sending to our Adventist schools generally, especially at the undergraduate level. So this material comes from the Education Department of the North American Division. They've done a lot of studies. All subjects, all grades, all sizes of schools over all years tested achieved above the national average. So sometimes we have a perceived quality issue, but in fact, we have excellent quality. And I can name lots and lots of our alumni who have gone on to be chief executive officers, chief financial officers, gone to the best graduate schools. We have outstanding academics. National Council for Private School Accreditation, we have the only religious system in the country where 100% of the schools are required to be accredited. The Adventist Accrediting Association through the General Conference. We have the largest education system in the world, if not the Catholics. I'm not sure about that one. Seen as the technology leaders in private education, this slide says that 30% of our children are in Adventist education. That means 70% are not. Those 70%, some of them will be saved for God, some of them will walk away. I worry about losing that generation. We believe in holistic education, head, heart, and hands. So here's a slide that shows number attending an Adventist school is the most important thing that has helped them to develop their religious faith. So somewhat, very much, if you combine those two, 74% of our students in the year 2000 said it helped develop their religious faith. As our world becomes more and more secular, our schools become more and more important. So 32, 49, 81% in 2010. The school was the most important thing in developing religious faith. Ideally, the most important thing would be your worship in your family and what you're doing at home. But in our current culture, the school is ending up being the most important thing. So our membership in the North American Division is inching upwards. Our North American Division school enrollments are declining. And so we lost about 13,000 students in a matter of a few years there. The number of schools in the North American Division is declining. And that's not because of homeschooling. So I homeschooled myself when I was growing up, some in and out of Adventist schools and homeschooling. My children were homeschooled. They ended up going to an Adventist academy for the last couple of years. But our number of schools is declining, and I think that has a lot to say about what's going to happen in the North American Division as far as our church vitality. Here is the demographics of the age. So you can see here that we have lots of 45 to 54 age category Adventists. And we have more than the general population of the 65 to 74 and 75 to 84 Adventists. But down here, we have 20 to 24 years old, much fewer Adventists than the general population. So, one of the biggest complaints I hear about is financial. It's too expensive to go to Andrews University. And then we hear Dave Ramsey, who I like, saying, don't spend money on a fancy private education. So when I was growing up, one time I asked my mom what would happen if we didn't have enough money to send me to school. And she said, well, we'd borrow the money. Well, of course, that's opposite what Dave Ramsey would say, right? I think education is a good investment. There's the chasm between having a college degree and having not a college degree. The earning power is tremendously different. So if you're going to go to school and borrow money, you better finish your degree. And it's been creeping up. It used to be about $900,000 difference in your lifetime earnings. Now it's probably up to $1.5 million difference in your lifetime earnings that you have a degree or not. But notice this problem here. Here's the Adventist households. 39% of Adventist households have less than $25,000 income. 30% have less than $50,000. So that means 69% of our Adventist households earn less than $50,000. That means we have about 31% that can afford to go to an expensive private school. So that's an issue. The number of school-aged children is declining. So we have 74% of our households have no children in them, and 26% do have children, and then from that 26, 30% of those go to Adventist schools, and 70% go to non-Adventist schools. And we know from the Valley Genesis study how important Adventist education is. So that's an issue that is concerning. You probably can't see this here, but this was some data that said 70% of our students were attending non-Adventist schools in colleges and universities. I talked to Larry Blackmer here a month or so ago, and he said, and I don't have the data, but he said 90% of Adventist students don't go to Adventist universities. So at the higher education level, 90% are not going to Adventist universities, 10% are going. So there's stresses on education and stresses on Adventist education. These are national stresses, declining demographics, we're having fewer babies, federal laws that impact financial aid and accreditation, historical trend to add programs that delete very few, cost increases outpacing parents' salaries, more students trying to avoid student loan debt. So this is the Adventist universities in North America. So as of 2015, we had 24,751 students attending. As of 2018, that had dropped down even lower. So 2018, we had 23,604 students. So basically, we've lost 3,200 students in the last few years, or about a 12% decrease. So if we lost all those students from one university, that would be like closing Andrews University, or closing Southern, or closing Walla Walla, or closing a whole bunch of the smaller universities. So is it any wonder that we're struggling financially? So here, I need some help for the last few minutes. If 90% of the Seventh-day Adventist students do not attend Adventist universities, why? And so why do you think they're not attending? What's the biggest reasons? Finances. Any other reasons?
Yeah, it's probably a value statement.
Value statement. Is the cost worth the value?
That's what more people
It's not important. Well, there is another value. Maybe one of you will pick it up. A reason why students wouldn't attend. It's a different value. I want to stay close to home. It's important to my family that we stay together. So more and more students feel that way. They don't want to go away. Any other reasons why you think? Well, sometimes it's financial, but sometimes it's just, I want to stay home. I want to be close to home. I want to have, as a parent, I want the influence over my children. Right? But it's still, in the State University of New York system, we call them, shouldn't share this with you, but we call them Long Island moms. They are mothers that did everything for their students, and they helicopter parents. So there's some people that don't want to allow the student to grow and gain their independence. So here are the main objections, I think, that students come up with. Costs, they want to stay close to home. Perceived quality, they think they don't know that much about our university. They think the quality is better at some other place. Weather, that might be a reason not to go to Andrews. But I think if you're going to live your whole life in Florida, you should spend 4 years going to Andrews University and experiencing the joy of winter. and the beauty in all the activities that you have. Major, maybe the major is not available. Spiritual atmosphere may be too restrictive or not good enough, so I want to go someplace else. So I don't think, in my mind, that we're competing against ourselves, even though we do that. I think I'm interested in how do we reach the 90% that are going elsewhere. And when I call a student or email a student, I pray before I call them, Lord, if this student will benefit spiritually by coming to Andrews University, please help me to interact with them in the way to bring them here. And if they're better off going someplace else, please have them go someplace else. So our goal is, how can we reach some of those students that are going to drift away from God, some of that 90%, not that they all will drift away from God. So here's some data that Randy Graves gave to me recently. I decided not to attend Andrews University this year because, and then the students selected. So this is a small sample, 21. He gave me a bunch of different samples and I just grabbed one. Tuition cost was a big reason. Other financial reasons, that might be the cost of housing and food if I stay home versus going away to school. Or maybe I have a car loan and I can't afford to go to school, who knows. Doesn't offer the degree I want, distance from home. Another college was a better fit for me. And this one, I don't mind about this one if they went to Union College or Southwestern or Ouachita Hills, that's fine for me. But this is a Department of Education closed schools report. You can see this is not just colleges, but there's a lot of financial problems, schools across the board. Atlantic Union College, where I went, was closed. This is the University of Wisconsin system. They're closing a whole bunch of schools and will service those students at other campuses. This is a quote that I think is very important, interesting. Nearly every other sector of the economy listens to consumers to drive innovation and improvements. The power of consumer insights has transformed industries like healthcare, transportation, hospitality, travel and tourism, and financial services. Why not bring these benefits to higher education? So I'm going to race ahead here because I want to stop. We did have a summit in Chicago where a lot of the church educational leaders got together to talk about how we could collaborate more and perhaps come up with a strong brand and system of education. I just want to show a couple of So I think we need to work on work programs. That's something that we'll be working on at Andrews, talking about. I would love to see a day come where a select group of students could be promised they come out of Andrews, out of our schools debt-free. They promise to work, they take fewer classes during the semester so they have more time to work. They take 5 or 6 years to finish, but they will come out debt-free. That would be a wonderful program. A fascinating thing that's happening is income sharing agreements. The president of Purdue University, he was the governor of Indiana, he has frozen tuition for the last 5 or 10 years at Purdue University. They've cut costs dramatically. And they are coming out with these income sharing agreements where investors say, I will give you money. It's not a loan. I'm giving you money for the part of your education that you can't cover with federal loans and federal grants. And then you will give back to me a certain percent of your income. So if you're an engineer, it might be 2 to 3% of your income for the next 5 years. If you're a history major, it might be 5 or 6% of your income for the next 6 or 8 years. History majors generally earn less money than engineers, and so they need a little higher percent. So if the student doesn't get a job, they don't pay back the income. If the student gets a job that pays too small an amount, they don't have to pay back. If the student gets a pay raise that goes up 3 or 4 times, so they're earning $200,000, they don't have to, they have their amount they have to pay back capped, so it doesn't go too high. So it's an investment tool where we say these students are worth investing in. We're going to help them come out of school debt-free, or at least additional debt-free. And there's a lot of interest in this. I would love to see this get some help from our I don't know what's happening here. Endowments. Mission, advancing austerity, system-wide collaboration. We just had a great business teachers conference. Adventist business teachers from around the world got together. It's amazing the excitement there is for having a world-class business program rather than a bunch of separate mediocre business programs. I don't know how long it will take for us to launch this, but I think I'm going to quit there. Thank you very much.